flirting with the lawyer about his underwear? Join us for a compelling breakdown of the recent Jennifer Crumbly hearing, held back on January 31st, which included issues with smear campaigns, immunity, and minors being sentenced as adults. Hello, we are True Crime and Wine Couple, and here we discuss all things true crime and whatever else strikes our fancy. We are glad to be back with you after a long hiatus. If you are a repeat offender, aka a returning subscriber, you are the real MVPs, and we are so grateful for you, and welcome back. We are happy to be back, and we're happy to have you back. Jennifer Crumbly's fabulous defense lawyer, Michael Desi, has petitioned the court for a dismissal or a trial based on prosecutorial misconduct. Back in February of 2024, Jennifer was found guilty of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter in the murders of Madison Baldwin, Tate Meyer, Justin Schilling, and Hannah St. Juliana. Jennifer was sentenced to 10 to 15 years of concurrent sentences. She is currently enjoying the accommodations at the Women's Huron Correctional Facility in Michigan. The hearing was presided over by Judge Cheryl A. Matthews, who I was really impressed with as far as her preparation, knowledge, and fairness to both parties. Mr. Desi's request for acquittal, or another trial, had 3 main arguments. 1. A proffer agreement was made by the prosecution for the guidance counselor, Sean Hopkins, and Dean of Students, Nicholas E. Jack, and they were able to testify with immunity, which affected the perception of Jennifer and basically forced her to take the stand in her own defense. The defense claims that the prosecution hired PR firms, aka social media influencers, to the tune of $100,000 in order to conduct a smear campaign against Crumbly.
I wonder why they didn't get in touch with us.
I would have been happy to smear her for $100,000. Ethan Crumbly was tried as an adult, therefore he acted as an adult, absolving his parents of any liability for gross negligence. Brief rundown of the trial. The trial began with the judge saying she only wanted to hear testimony about a new trial. She wasn't having the PR and media firm information. She wasn't hearing that day. The defense lawyer then asked to remove belly chains, Mr. Desi was the defense lawyer, because Jennifer has a hernia, and he said it was a very large hernia hanging off her body. The judge deferred to the deputies. Her belly chain was removed with no confirmation of the hernia.
Hernias don't hang, they just sort of bulge.
They bulge. According to him, it was a very large hernia hanging off her.
Yeah.
So she's got more problems. She's got 99 problems. Rundown of the hearing, but Jay-Z isn't one. He's Diddy's problem. Desi began by reviewing the proffer agreements, saying the prosecution argued that they were not cooperation agreements, did not confirm immunity, and did not offer anything in exchange for testimony. Desi says each argument was false, and he read through one of the identical agreements to prove his point, because the 2 guys were given identical agreements.
Right.
Desi then shows that the agreement clearly states that no factual statement made will be used in prosecution, which is a grant of use immunity. So that's basically like a one-time deal where they can go and say whatever and nothing is used against them. Right. It's also called Queen for a Day. He gave all the names of it. Desi then reviewed what proffer agreements were and says the prosecution is gaslighting. And the judge came back at him with, that was made before you were born. I'd say maybe he's in his 30s.
Oh, he's a young guy.
Yeah, and okay. Then he knew the year the movie was made, he knew who was in the movie, he knew everything about the movie, so the judge stood corrected there. Desi says according to law, there was a duty to produce the agreements, but the prosecution did not. Desi then says if it wasn't for the proffer agreements, Ejac and Hopkins might have pled the 5th, which would have affected Crumbly's testimony as well, leaving only the text messages and 12-minute video of Crumbly attending the meeting. And I believe that was her walking into the meeting and walking out of the meeting. And then it was any text messages that she sent.
Right.
The judge then argues that the testimony of Ejac and Hopkins would not have changed the fact that JC went to school, never mentioned the gun, then left without her son in a 12-minute time period. And then Desi reiterates that the subjective testimony with statements like it seemed odd that Jennifer didn't leave with Ethan was damning to Jennifer and was the reason why she was convicted, basically. The judge says the testimony could have been cross-examined and the jury could have believed all three people. It could have gone either way. The prosecution asserts that as well. Of course, the prosecution agrees with the judge. That always happens.
Yeah.
Desi then says there would be no conviction without the testimony because the meeting and gross negligence were the crux of the prosecutor's case, and the prosecution needed a record of what happened at the meeting and what Jennifer Crumbly did as a result in order to convict. So basically, the fact that those two guys testified, she was a bad mother, got her convicted. Basically, that's what they're saying. Desi then went on to state that the school had a plan that Ethan should be around his peers, and taking him was optional, leaving with him that day to get him help, implying that the school discouraged taking him home. Defense also emphasizes that immunity was not announced until after James Crumbly's trial, implying that a carrot was dangled for the school officials to testify against Jennifer. Then they discussed Ethan's drawing, and it was said that Jennifer knew of the gun, the drawing, and the Facebook posts, and still chose not to tell the school when she came into the meeting. Desi says that there is reasonable probability that the trial would have had a different result without the agreement. But then you never quite know.
No, you don't.
You know? Then comes the joke and the double entendre about Mr. Desi's briefs not being brief, and everyone chuckled, and it was like, okay, are we making an underwear reference here? It was strange. It was a little flirty. It was a weird dynamic. Like, you didn't see that in Delphi, man. There was no flirting going on in Delphi.
No.
Desi says the remedy is acquittal or a new trial. And basically the judge is like, good luck. A few cases regarding discovery violations and closure were discussed. So basically Desi was, he was backing that ass up. He was backing up what he was saying, Okay, then it's the prosecution's turn. The prosecutor then spoke to the fact that this is not a game. There was no gaslighting. That obviously got him hot and bothered.
Yeah.
The evidence did not support criminal charges for Ejak or Hopkins, basically because they were not in the know, like Jennifer was, and that was the main difference. The witnesses were subpoenaed and did not show up because of a proffer agreement, so they had to go. It wasn't like, oh yeah, we'll go and testify, just, let us free, you know what I mean? Any witness can plead the fifth for any reason, which is true. No immunity was granted because the court wasn't petitioned. So basically, it almost seemed like they did something shady there. Like, we're not going to petition for the immunity, so therefore we can say that,
Right.
Which that would speak to the gaslighting, which is
Exactly.
ignoring whatever the heck is right in front of your face, Jennifer was responsible, not the school personnel, because of her level of gross negligence, and she could have reasonably foreseen the outcome. The judge then asked if the prosecution purposely planted favorable evidence, and prosecutor says no immunity and nothing was offered for immunity. Prosecutor then reviews facts of the case that Jennifer knew, Ethan's mental health issues at school, and skill with the handgun. Then the prosecutor and judge discuss the staff being charged, but says there were no immunity and they were not up for prosecution. The attorneys representing the school staff asked that the first meeting with the prosecution was in a proffer setting. So basically, the prosecutor put it off on their personal attorneys. And then, this is interesting, they said that they were never going to put Ejak on the stand, but Shannon Smith called him. And that's how he wound up on the stand. Go figure. The prosecution said not only do they need to prove discovery violations, but prejudice as well, and there was none in the testimony. Prosecution says there would not be a different outcome, the verdict was worthy of confidence, and then the judge gives a little bit of pushback regarding a different outcome. The prosecution vehemently denies it. Then the judge said, okay, make your final statements, this is it. It's showtime. So Desi says the prosecution called Ejak for him to make subjective comments, such as it was odd for Jennifer not to take her son home, she didn't follow through, etc. He also says they gave damning testimony that he believes affected the verdict. The prosecutor's final statement, nothing mattered except what Jennifer did. Desi tries to bring up the PR again, Judge isn't having it. She says it's not relevant at this time. My thing with all this, to me, Jennifer had a responsibility to her son.
Absolutely.
So anything that he did, she should be responsible for, in my opinion. I know a lot of people disagree with me. I know this is a landmark case, but I think that the public is tired of school shootings and this is going to continue. Somebody's got to suffer.
Right.
You know. But I also think that the school was in the wrong as well. Because I think that if you're a school personnel, you have responsibility for every single student in that school. You were told by the teacher that this kid did this drawing. You knew, and the school also knew that the kid was looking up ammunition during class. So they knew those two things. And to me, you should never send a kid with a mental health issue back to class alone.
No, that didn't make any sense.
And give them their personal effects without searching them. Because he could have had something in his backpack that he could have injured himself with.
Exactly.
Even if there was to me putting that the world's dead, everyone's dead is a suicidal ideation. And it should have been treated like that. And if it was treated as a suicidal ideation, he would have been searched. And this never would have happened.
Right.
Like I can't even imagine, like, as a parent of one of those 4 young people, how this was so preventable. And everybody
Absolutely.
just dropped the ball.
All the way across the board. Yeah, only one thing would have happened, and all of this never would have happened.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He was searched. The school officials made him go home, and which they can do. They could have suspended him and said, "Listen, he's suspended. He's going home. You need to get him evaluated before he can come back." Any of those things could have happened. Now, I was very much on board when they charged the parents.
Okay.
I'm like, this needed to be done. Something needs to be done. This needed to be done. And I know there weren't really any laws out there pertaining to this. This is sort of like they had to sort of like shove this into,
Right.
Something to get them charged. So yeah, there's going to be, but the one thing in here that actually caught my interest was that Ethan was charged as an adult. In my mind, It makes sense that, okay, he's an adult, so we can't hold somebody else responsible for what this adult did. But then you take it a step further, and I thought about it like this. Like, let's say we had somebody come into our house to stay here, and they're an adult, all right, a full-fledged adult. They're not a relative. They're just coming in. We're letting them stay for a weekend or whatever.
Okay.
I have a handgun.
Right.
And I just leave it out. With it's not locked, it's loaded, it's just laying out, and they take that handgun and go commit a crime with it. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get charged with something.
Right.
Now, I might not get charged with homicide, I might not get charged with manslaughter, but I'm going to get charged with something.
Right.
So I don't think any of these arguments that he's making is going to hold water in terms of them either getting a new trial, lessening the charges, lessening the sentence, anything like that. I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
That is a very good prediction, because guess what? The judge denied the motion. You didn't know that, but the judge denied the motion. Yeah, I found that the next day.
Yeah, it just, I mean, they're all, I mean, they make you think for a second, but none of them, I don't see where any of them are really going to, in the landscape of anything, change anything. But I still think those school officials needed to be held responsible in some shape or form.
I know the dean of students is working at another school. I don't know what became of the guidance counselor. I'm not sure. And as a guidance counselor, you should understand. I mean, I didn't want to get personal, but I'm a special education teacher. I understand mental health. If I had a kid who I thought was a danger to themselves or others, I would not leave that kid alone for a second. And I would take their things. I know that search and seizures in school get wacky. But according to my school, when that backpack is on school property,
It's school property.
It's school property, right, exactly. So I just, and 4 victims too. It's not like, one person got injured. You know what I mean? Or even maimed for life. 4 young people lost their lives.
I mean, is this something where I know as of right now, everything's state by state by state, and I don't think there's any federal laws addressing any of this. Could there be a federal law that addresses these situations specifically, so they're not trying to put a around something in a square
I don't
hole.
think anyone is gonna want to address this specifically. They don't want
Why not? It's such a
because
huge
even
problem.
all the lawyers that talk about it, all the commentary I hear is this has opened a huge can of worms.
But that's what I'm saying. You can close the can of worms by making something specific. And I'm sorry. I think these parents need to be held accountable for them. And in this case, they bought the gun. They had control of the gun, and they lost control of the gun. They took him to go learn how to shoot the gun.
Right.
They need to be held responsible. They knew of his mental health issues. Are you going to buy a kid with mental health issues a gun? No. What are you,
I think
stupid?
we live in a world where people are reactive and not proactive, especially schools. Schools just like to brush stuff under the rug. You know, look at the Abby's Warner case.
Mhm.
I mean, how many people warned them?
Right.
Brush it under the rug until she's shot. Now we got a problem.
Yeah.
You know, or Uvalde. I mean, you're even actively getting attacked and you don't go in. So it's crazy. Judge denied the motion. So once again, we reviewed the Jennifer Crumbly hearing for acquittal or a new trial. We told you the outcome. We are True Crime and Wine Couple, and we know you can spend your time watching a boatload of content, especially in 2025. YouTube blew up, man. And we are so grateful you viewed ours. Please like and subscribe, and we hope you will turn on notifications and join us for the next video. We will be uploading once a week consistently. We promise. We promised ourselves and we promised you.
Yes, exactly. Hold us accountable.
So look for the next video and we'll catch you in the next video. Thanks. Thanks for spending this time with us.